You've been calling it confusion, but God calls it clarity. You're lying in bed at night, scrolling through old texts, replaying old memories, wondering how something that once felt so right now feels so off. And you keep telling yourself, maybe it's just a season, or maybe they'll come around, or maybe it's just me overthinking. But what if it's not just you overthinking? What if it's God underlining the silence you've been ignoring? Because here's the truth, peace doesn't leave without a reason. When God pulls his peace from a place, it's not to punish you, it's to protect you. You've been trying to fix what God never told you to carry. You've been trying to hold together what God has been gently and then forcefully pulling apart. And I know it's hard, I know it hurts, but pain is sometimes the echo of God's whisper saying, this isn't it. You keep praying for answers, but you've already received them. They just didn't look like what you expected. You thought an answer would be a clear voice from heaven or a dream at night, but sometimes God answers through absence. He answers through unease. He answers through that heavy feeling in your chest that something isn't right and hasn't been for a while. And the problem is we confuse comfort with peace. Just because you're used to them doesn't mean they're good for you. Just because the connection feels familiar doesn't mean it's from God. Familiar pain is still pain. Familiar chaos is still chaos. You can't keep staying in dysfunction just because you've gotten used to it. You can't call it loyalty when it's actually bondage. The peace left a long time ago, but you stayed hoping, believing, convincing yourself that if you love harder, pray longer, give more of yourself, they'll finally see you. But the truth is, they saw you the whole time. They just didn't value what they saw. And God's not going to let you stay in a place where your identity keeps getting starved. He loves you too much to let you keep shrinking just to fit into someone else's small view of who you are. So now, God is doing what you wouldn't. He's letting things fall apart. The conversations are dry. The energy is off. You feel like you're fighting alone. And deep down, you know this ain't what God promised you. Because the blessings of God come with peace, not pressure. God's hand will never call you to compromise your soul, but still, you keep going back. You keep remembering the good times. You keep romanticizing the potential. And maybe the most dangerous thing you can do is fall in love with what could be when God is trying to show you what really is. So what do you do when the peace is gone but the memories remain? You trust God more than you trust your feelings. You believe the whisper of the Spirit over the noise of your loneliness. You let go of what's no longer growing so God can bring in what's meant to grow you. Because here's what nobody tells you. Peace is not passive. Peace is powerful. Peace is a person. And when he walks out, it's a sign you're staying somewhere he didn't build. You were not made to beg for what's already yours in Christ. You were not made to keep choosing someone who never chooses you back. And you were not made to call love what is really just fear wearing a mask. That's why you've been restless. That's why you've been irritable. That's why your spirit won't settle. Because peace has a sound, and this ain't it. So today, make a decision. Stop asking God to bring peace to a place he's already vacated. Stop asking for closure from someone who was never open. Stop clinging to what keeps costing you your joy. You don't need another apology. You don't need another sign. You just need to believe that when peace walks out, God is walking you into something better. You're not being abandoned, you're being aligned. You're not losing love, you're losing a lie that looked like it. And if peace left, maybe it's time you did too. You've been praying for a sign, but God's already sent 5. And still you're asking God, what do you want me to do? While standing in front of a door he's closed 10 times. The truth is, it's not that God hasn't spoken, it's that you didn't like the way he said it. He didn't speak with thunder this time. He didn't split the sky or send an angel to your bedroom. Instead, he let the same fight happen again. He let the same disrespect hit your heart. He let the same conversation leave you feeling small. Why? Because God doesn't always speak in new words. Sometimes he repeats the old ones louder. And here's the hard truth. When God repeats himself, it's not because he's being unclear. It's because you're not listening. You keep asking for clarity, but God gave you confirmation over and over. You saw the red flags. You felt the weight in your chest. You heard that little voice say, this isn't it, but you called it doubt. You called it fear. You called it insecurity. What if it wasn't any of that? What if it was God? What if it was his mercy dressed in discomfort? See, repetition is a divine mercy. When we miss it the first time, he'll send it again in a different way. Through a friend's warning, through a sermon that hits too close, through a moment that leaves you wondering why you're always the one giving, always the one forgiving, always the one fighting for something that's no longer fighting for you. And you're frustrated. Not because you don't know what God is saying, but because you do. Deep down, you know what he's saying. Let go. Move on. Release them. That's why you stay in the cycle. That's why you keep going back to what's already broken. You're not stuck because you lack answers. You're stuck because you've been avoiding action. You keep asking for new direction while ignoring the old instruction. And now it's showing up everywhere. The pain, the tension, the exhaustion. That's not random. That's God repeating the same message. This is not where you belong anymore. You see, God loves you too much to let you stay in a place that's beneath your calling. And he'll keep turning up the volume, not to punish you, but to position you. Because sometimes we don't move until it hurts too much to stay. So he sends reminders in conversations you didn't expect, in songs that mess with your emotions, in feelings you can't shake, in peace that disappears every time you go back. And if you won't listen to the whisper, he'll speak through the wound. He'll let you get tired enough, drained enough, disappointed enough, not because he doesn't care, but because he's been trying to break you free from something that's breaking you down. And when God starts repeating himself, it's a sign that the next move is yours. He's not going to beg. He's not going to force it. But he will keep showing you the truth until you're ready to walk in it. So stop calling it coincidence. Stop labeling it confusion. Start recognizing the pattern. You're not just going through the same thing, you're ignoring the same word. And if you've ever wondered why the pain keeps showing up in different outfits, it's because God will change the form to deliver the same message until it finally sets you free. So don't wait for the 10th heartbreak to finally do what you knew you needed to do after the first. Don't wait for peace to be completely gone before you finally walk out of what God already told you to leave. Because the repetition is the revelation. God is speaking, and this time he's waiting to see if you're finally ready to listen. And when you do, when you stop running from what you already know, when you finally say yes to what your spirit has been screaming, that's when the shift happens. That's when the healing starts. That's when the cycle breaks. God's not trying to confuse you. He's been clear, just repeated. Now it's your move. There's something suffocating about staying where you no longer fit. You've been shrinking yourself to keep the peace, dimming your light so they won't feel threatened, biting your tongue so their insecurities won't be triggered. And all the while, the version of you that God is calling out, the one that's bold, healed, growing, free, keeps getting shoved into a box you were never meant to stay in. You don't even recognize yourself anymore. You laugh smaller. You dream less. You second guess everything. And it's not that you lost your passion. It's that you've been living in a place where your growth is seen as a threat, not a testimony. They liked you better when you were broken, because broken people are easier to control. But now that God's been stirring something inside of you, now that you're starting to see your worth, your value, your call, suddenly you're too much. No, you're not too much. They just refuse to grow with you. And that's the problem. You're trying to grow roots in soil that no longer supports your purpose. You're asking people who benefit from your weakness to celebrate your strength. You're hoping they'll understand a version of you they're not even willing to meet. But here's what you have to realize. If it costs you your growth, It's too expensive. God didn't call you to stay stuck so someone else can stay comfortable. You've been playing it small so they won't feel left behind. But what if the very reason they're holding you back is because they already know they can't go where you're going? And instead of accepting that, they'll sabotage you subtly with backhanded compliments, with silence when you succeed, with guilt trips every time you try to take a step forward. You think you're keeping the relationship alive, but in reality, you're keeping yourself buried. And God is whispering, that version of you they love so much, I've outgrown it. And so have you. That's why you've been uncomfortable lately. That's why the same conversations drain you. That's why your spirit groans when you're around them. You're not being dramatic, you're being stretched. And stretching doesn't feel like a blessing. It feels like breaking, but it's necessary for becoming. You keep trying to honor connections that expired when your calling evolved, but you can't stay loyal to what's limiting you and still expect to be used by God fully. At some point, you've got to decide, do I want their approval or do I want God's anointing? Because the two rarely come packaged together. And I know it's hard. You've invested time, energy, love. You shared your dreams, your fears. You made plans. But sometimes the people you plan forever with aren't built for the next chapter. And if you keep dragging them into seasons they weren't designed for, you'll end up stuck and blaming God for a prison you kept unlocking with your own hands. You're not growing because you're not planted anymore. You're buried. And there's a difference. God plants you in places to build you, but people bury you in places to box you in. And the moment you realize that someone is more interested in the old you than the new you, that's the moment you have to choose. Am I going to keep pretending I don't see the shift? Or am I going to move forward in obedience? Because here's the truth. Not everyone is assigned to your destiny. Some people were only assigned to your development. And once the lesson is learned, the relationship has served its purpose. So stop apologizing for outgrowing what you prayed to grow out of. Stop watering dead connections hoping they'll come back to life. Stop playing small in rooms. God gave you the voice to command. You were not created to stay stuck just because it's familiar. You were not called to carry someone else's comfort while your own soul suffocates. You were made for more. And if your growth offends them, let it. If your evolution threatens them, let it. You weren't built to fit in a space that God is calling you to rise out of. So rise, grow, break free, and don't look back. You keep asking God to heal your heart, but you won't let go of what's breaking it. You cry out for freedom, yet your hands are still clinging to the very thing that keeps you bound. And it's not that God hasn't heard you. It's not that he hasn't started the healing. It's that healing can't happen when you keep sipping from the same cup that made you sick in the first place. You say you want to move on, but you keep checking their status. You say you want peace, but you keep replaying the pain. You say you're done, but your heart still whispers maybe one more chance. But how can God pour in restoration when you won't pour out the residue? It's like asking for fresh air while refusing to open the window. You want change, but only if it doesn't cost your comfort. You want deliverance, but only if it doesn't require distance. You want healing, but you don't want to let go of the person who keeps wounding you with the same words, the same silence, the same cycle. And you wonder why you still feel stuck, why the peace never lasts, why your prayers feel heavy. It's because you're asking God to make you whole while holding on to what's making you hollow. You don't need more prayer, you need more obedience. Because there's a moment where healing isn't waiting on heaven, it's waiting on you. Waiting for you to delete that number. Waiting for you to stop romanticizing pain and calling it love. Waiting for you to surrender what's already surrendered you. God can't bless what you won't release. And he's too good to heal what you keep infecting. He won't put a bandage on a wound you keep reopening. He won't force your freedom, but he will wait for your surrender. And I get it. Letting go feels like loss. Walking away feels like weakness. You thought they were the one. You built your identity around them. You saw a future. But maybe God let it break because you were building on borrowed hope. sit here in the tension, asking God to fix what he's trying to free you from, begging for the thing he already removed his peace from, and deep down, you know it, you feel it, you hear it in the silence, you sense it in the restlessness. God isn't ignoring you, he's inviting you. Inviting you to trust him with the pain you don't understand. Inviting you to believe that healing begins where inviting you to stop asking him to revive what he's already buried. You're not healing because you're still holding, still hoping they'll change, still waiting for closure they'll never give, still trying to fix what God never told you to carry. But listen, healing isn't passive. Healing is hard. Healing is tears. Healing is discipline. Healing is deleting the conversation you keep rereading for false comfort. Healing is walking away when everything in you wants to stay. It's refusing to feed what no longer fuels your future. Because the truth is, you don't need them to apologize. You don't need them to understand. You don't need another round of false promises and short-lived effort. You just need to be done. God is not trying to take something from you to hurt you. He's trying to take it because it's hurting you. And the moment you release what's been poisoning your spirit is the moment his healing can finally flood in. So no, you're not crazy for feeling what you feel. You're not weak for wanting to go back. You're not broken beyond repair. But you will stay broken if you keep holding what was never meant to heal you. You can't drink poison and pray for strength. You can't cling to chaos and cry for peace. You can't stay stuck and still walk in purpose. At some point, you've got to choose the pain you know or the healing you haven't tasted yet. And when you do, when you